welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aries, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of September 2024. I hope you're well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. If the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go deeper, there will be an extended at the end. You can access that by way of the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. There you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. It's quite the little community over there. So if that sounds like it might be something that is of interest to you, you know what to do with that. Let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Aries, please? La la. Oop. Okay. We have the Devil card, we have the Queen of Pentacles, and we have the Ten of Wands. And I'm going to put them all together like that. This is just a little clusterfuck over there for what August was for you. What about current energy for Aries, please? We have the Eight of Cups. Wonderful. And what about what's coming towards Aries for September, please? Thank you. We have Justice. At the bottom of the deck we have the Knight of Wands, which obviously represents your fellow fire sign of Sagittarius. It's a card that talks about it can talk about a gain of momentum, it can talk about opportunities that arise, it can talk about being opportunistic actually. It talks about action and adventure and all those things that Aries loves, Sagittarius loves. It's a really nice card to have as the prevailing energy underpinning the reading for this period of time that we're looking at, particularly since that seems to have been a little bit awkward for you. But let's get some clarifiers out on the table and see what this is all about. Excuse me. How about these 3 cards here? I'm not taking all of those. That's absolute nonsense. Let's put these back here. I'm not even going to turn them over. Let's have a look. Tell me what about these 3 cards here, please. Again. All right. Well, I'm going to take that 5 of Pentacles as sideways, because it kind of is. Death in the reverse, 6 of Cups in the reverse. Looks like it's been complicated, Aries. Tell me about the 8 of Cups, please. Why is this here for Aries? Thank you. 3 of Pentacles in reverse and the Hanged Man in reverse. Interesting. I can see a theme that's starting to play out here. Tell me about the Justice card, please. Why is this here for Aries? Right. We have the Ace of Wands and the 5 of Wands in reverse. Wonderful. I really like this. And just to top it all off, we have the 8 of Cups again, putting in an appearance here as the other shadow card at the bottom of the deck. So I'm just going to put these so they're less of a shit show on the table for you, so you can see what I'm looking at. Right. Let's start over here. We have the Devil and we have the 10 of Wands. With the Queen of Pentacles. Now, Capricorn heavy is how I would describe August. So Capricornian themes and perhaps even Saturnian themes of hard work and the grind and going back and doing everything again and again and again until we get it right. I mean, that's ultimately what Saturn is about. He's a hard taskmaster. And in ancient astrology, he was given to be the planet that was the deliverer of karma, I guess, right? Or the representative of karmic expression throughout our lives. And that made sense because he was kind of like the furthest planet away from humans and the closest to the gods, actually. So it makes sense that he would oversee all of that. Latterly, that certainly in modern astrology, Pluto has taken on more of that kind of energy than Saturn currently holds, but I think there's still a degree of it there. But we have here with the Devil and with the Queen of Pentacles an almost the polarity of Capricorn playing out in your life. Now, you're very different signs. Aries is ruled by Mars, and so it is fast and it is initiatory and it is going off in this direction and it's doing everything now. It's very fast. Capricorn, on the other hand, whilst also a cardinal sign, so also initiatory in its own way, is of Earth. So it is it's slow, it's methodical, It's very much concerned with structure and order and all of these kind of things that Mars doesn't really care about that much. But the reason why I say it's a polarity is because we have the kind of stuck energy of the devil on one hand, and we have the free-flowing investment of the Queen of Pentacles on the other. And she represents that self-investment, right? Understanding the value of things. Whereas in the case of the devil, perhaps the idea of the value of things has been lost. And somewhere in the middle of it all, we have the Ten of Wands. We have an energy that is burdensome and heavy and trying to complete something. I mean, it's a Saturn card right there. It's Saturn in Sagittarius, I think. So we've got a trifecta of Saturn here on the table, which is also in retrograde in the sign of Pisces, just in case you were interested. But that ending is not coming. Not the way that we intended. And it's interesting because in the Ten of Wands in the upright, what we've got is, yes, it's all been hard work, but it is now coming to an end. When it's in the reverse, it's like you are perpetuating some sort of situation that is making life hard for yourself. And the way that I read these three cards together is, there is a choice to be made here. Like, you get to decide which way this plays out, or you have been given the opportunity, because let's not forget this is in your recent past, and so I would imagine this is energy that's been taking up quite a lot of August for you, whether you are going to continue down the path that you are on, and whether that path is of the nature of the Queen of Pentacles version of Saturn or the Devil version of Saturn, one that flows and is slow, yes, but is methodical and thorough and you know, ready for investment and whatnot, and the other which is kind of stuck, trapped, wanting to stay where we are for whatever reason. And usually that reason is we're a little afraid to break out of something. Now, last month we did talk about the fact that there were choices that were coming up for you, and in order to take advantage of those the opportunities that were being presented in that, something was going to have to be lost, something was going to have to die. And I did get a bit of kickback from some people on that Aries video. They're like, well, why wouldn't we do that? And you know, oh, you seem to be this is a very negative reading. I didn't see it that way at all, actually. And apologies if it didn't come across that way, but I was actually feeling incredibly compassionate toward the fear that was generated around the instability of your life that absolutely characterized most of last year and a bit of the year before. Whether it was to do with homes or jobs and all that sort of stuff, right? There was a big, long tower moment that was happening there. And how you had fought so hard to get yourself to a place of stability. I was not implying that you did not have the courage to take the next leap, but that there was something far more considered and perhaps even of the nature of Saturn about the way that you were approaching the next move forwards. And if it was possible for you to consider the fact that it was okay for something to die and it was all right for you to throw yourself out there like the Fool, then this would all be okay. And I do feel like the fear that I'm talking about in the Devil card is encapsulated by that, but I've worked so hard to get myself straight, to get myself stable, right? To get myself to a point where I feel like I'm in charge of my life anymore. I'm about to throw myself to the winds of chaos. Am I ready for that? It was not intended to be a negative reading at all, and apologies to anybody who took it that way. But I stand by the content of that reading. Doubly so, since we're seeing it playing out here again in the cards that are talking about your recent past. This energy, whether or not you consider it to be committed one way or the other, and I don't think that it is, because I think there was a decision that needed to be made there about what was going to happen. Probably had most of you wondering about the depth of the stability that you actually had. Because let's not forget, the issue was not going from homeless to having a home again, although that would be, you know, really high up there for a lot of you if that's the situation that you went through, or anything even, you know, remotely like that. It was, can I go through something that is really, really difficult and come out the other side improved? You know, do I have the stamina for that? Do I have the strength for that? Because it took a lot out of me to get to where I am now. Am I prepared to let that go? Do I feel capable of it? The learning experience was actually in the navigating of all of that. It wasn't whether you've got a home or you haven't got a home. You've got a car, you haven't got a car. You've got a job, you haven't got a job. It was like, how do you function when you don't have a safety net? And I hope that what most of you have taken from the last couple of years is that you can march right up to the gates of hell and you can sit there for a considerable amount of time. And when you feel like you are ready, you can get up and you can walk back to where, not to where you were, but to somewhere better. Like that endurance, that strength, that courage that you demonstrated, particularly in the times where you felt like you were being anything but courageous, is the hallmark of somebody whose soul is evolving up, leveling up. Yeah, we talked a lot in 2023 about the difference between taking action and being reactionary. And if Saturn has done anything for you at all, it is the ability to be able to understand that there is a difference, right? So we're bringing up things of, you know, self-control and self-mastery, all these sorts of things. And being in a position whereby it is almost time to trade up. It's a whole new level of fear that comes up, and rightly so. I don't think you would be taking the situation seriously enough if that was not the case. Now, when we look at the clarifiers that are underneath here, notice we have this Five of Pentacles also showing up sideways. We have the Death card, Pluto, Scorpio, and we have the Six of Cups, which is also Scorpio. We're talking about a kind of depth here that, with the best will in the world, Aries, is not often associated with Aries as a sign. It's not really often associated with Mars as a planet, as an energy. Because the focus is very much on being the warrior in the now. It's very considerably less about the consequences of one's actions or the contemplation of what got us here in the first place. It's everything happening in the moment. The Five of Pentacles is a card that talks about how we are meeting our own basic needs, whether we are doing that or whether we are not. It's an unstable energy in and of itself when it is in the upright, and it shows a level of stabilization when it shows up reversed. Here, it's hanging again. And it's hanging because the decisions that were being made by you in August were a reflection of how much you are prepared to meet your own basic needs in all senses versus being reactionary, whether that's in fear and retracting from a situation or in fear and lashing out in a situation, for example. That won't be how it's played out for all of you, but certainly for some of you. And we see the Death card in reverse and the Six of Cups in reverse, both Scorpio cards. This one speaking about this feeling of nostalgia for the past, right? Quite often when we see the Six of Cups, we've got some sort of situation that we're heading back into, at the very least emotionally, if not, you know, materially and physically and whatnot. It's a card that talks about the past. And it's interesting here that we've got a card that talks about going back to the past, which is showing up in the reverse. So there is an absolute resolution here that we are not going back into the past. But we also have this Death card reversed, which is this kind of a block on the transformational aspect of what's happening here. And it feels like, because it's this push-pull, the tugging in each direction, it's like, which one of these energies is going to dominate for you? Is it the past? Is it the future? Is it where you are right now? How deeply do you understand where you are right now? And how much are you willing to submit to a process that seems to be bigger than you? I think fire signs find that very difficult. because we're used to influencing the world around us by our actions, right? So, and our energy is very outward expressing. And I think the notion that there may be something that is outside the influence of our actions is almost anathema to an Aries and to a Leo. I think because of Sagittarius's broader philosophical outlook, I think they probably might find it a little easier to deal with. But we like to be masters of our own fate, Aries and Leo. And what seems to be shifting here is an idea or an understanding that somewhere along the line, this stopped being you as a singular Aries, just, missioning about on planet Earth, trying to find ways to succeed before you shuffle off this mortal coil. And there's something a little bit deeper really starting to resonate with you, right? Whether it's that you're starting to see the connections between things. Maybe the last few years were so difficult that it has enabled you to become reflective about your situation, for sure, but the ways in which you suffered versus dealt with pain. Right? Suffering is optional, pain is mandatory, and all that sort of thing, right? But also within that, how you can see how much more positively you are able to engage with the world now that you see the positive effects of what you went through. Even if it was just a deeper and increased appreciation for what you have, like those things that you took for granted before that you absolutely don't now. It'll be different for each of you. I wouldn't go as far as to say that Aries is finding God. As I don't think it's necessarily like as profound as that. We're not talking about some sort of Damascene conversion here. But the sense that you are incredibly small and incredibly insignificant, and also unique and special and charged with divine will to do a thing here. It's like the universe works in mysterious ways, and in the last few years you've seen that in action, you've seen it firsthand. And whilst you would never want to go back and re-experience what happened in 2022 and 2023, at the same time there is a level of gratitude for where you are now, and an understanding that it literally could not have happened any other way. It's balancing, it's this assessing almost of where you're sitting on the spectrum of Devil Capricorn versus Queen of Pentacles Capricorn. I don't think it's felt like indecision, because I think that would be very obnoxious to an Aries, just being in an indecisive state. But maybe it's a little bit more like once bitten, twice shy. It's like, well, my natural inclination is to be incredibly reactive and just bounce this way, but we know we actually know there are consequences to that. We understand it deeply, and so maybe now we're just going to take a few minutes to think about it before we then choose what happens next. I mean, all this is speaking to a transitional energy, but one that is governed by you, and that's important because sovereignty, authority, autonomy, these things are all really, really important to you. You know, your other card in the major arcana is the Emperor, and he really is the pinnacle of that authority figure in one's own life. But we want to be making sure that we're making good decisions, not just any decisions for the sake of making them, right? That seems to me to be a Saturnian lesson right there. And I'm going to have to come up with another word rather than indecision, because it's not indecision. It's careful. Any careful consideration of next steps is a reflection of your wisdom, not of trauma. Can I put it that way? Is that something that you would... I think I'm going to go with that. So whilst there is a desire not to return to the past, it's almost like I'm a little concerned about trebucheting myself into the future too. And that, I think, is the perfect place for you to be. When we come into your current energy, we have the Eight of Cups, and this is really significant because it says to me that the balance has tipped here, right? We are leaving behind anything that feels emotionally of the old cycle, because something has changed in you, right? There's been a dramatic change in you in the last couple of years. And where you have been weighed down by emotional issues of the past that largely you were oblivious to prior to let's say prior to 2023. Now these lessons have been assimilated, and all of the sticky emotional baggage that went along with it is being released. And what does that mean in practice? Well, we have the Three of Pentacles here, which is interesting because it's a card that talks about cooperation and collaboration and all that sort of thing. And it's in the reverse. We have a card of stasis that talks about hanging yourself upside down to gain a deeper perspective on your life and you know, all the information that's coming to us at all times. That too is reversed. What I heard when I turned this over was that you were no longer waiting for somebody to point you in the direction that you should be going. I'm sure I mentioned last month that I felt for some of you there was almost like this this kind of waiting for some sort of sign, some sort of synchronicity, or like some sort of tacit approval that that was the right way forwards. I feel like if it wasn't you, it was someone else, but it fits very much with here. And the situation that I was referring to when I talked about it last month was at the point where my court case concluded with my ex-husband, and I got the piece of paper that I needed, and I was kind of just, for about a week, I just went on with my business. And I was like, what am I waiting for? What's happening here? And when I sat with it for a minute, I was like, you've been held in place for so long. That's in my situation, at least. It's like being in a cage and, you know, having been a wild animal that's been recuperated, or even an animal that's been bred in captivity, right? In a cage, taken to a hilltop, and they open the door and you just sit there. And you go, well, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do now. You know, and you end up with like the zookeepers or whatever, trying to go, here you go, come on, out of the box, and you're like, well, what? What? I realised at that point that I simply just needed to make the decision that I was going to go now, because I had all of the pieces of paper that I needed. And it astonished me that it took me 7, 8, 9 days to notice that that was an option that was available to me, right? Because I was kind of waiting for some sort of sign from the universe, or some big fucking flare or fireworks or something that would say, go on, Carrie, off you go. Wonder if there's been a little bit of that there. A little bit of like the fire that is Aries, the initiation, the spark, the boom that is Aries, it's had its edges kind of sanded off a little bit by previous experiences, these more recent experiences. And there's a caution that's been introduced that almost at this point feels like it has maybe it's dulled your shine a little bit. That's possible. That's possibly a way of thinking about it. But maybe just sort of turned the gas down on your fire. Because what I'm seeing here is you're not hanging around anymore waiting for anybody to tell you that, well done, you're evolved enough to be able to go back to making your own decisions about things. Not fighting, not reacting, but instead initiating. The Eight of Cups is a return of power to you, because you are now no longer emotionally restricted by the old. We put that down. The Three of Pentacles is saying, well, like, you're waiting for somebody else to say? You're waiting for somebody to work with? Are you trying to hedge your bets a little bit by seeing what everybody else is doing and then maybe doing a little bit of that. It's like, Aries, wherever you are, wherever you have been for the last couple of years, gates of hell and back again, it's time for you to start being out here in the world and doing what you do best. Albeit older, wiser, a little Saturnian edge to you, you know, certainly marked by Saturn, if you will. The illumination that was necessary, the different perspectives that were necessary, they're here. They're in you now. No longer do you have to submit to the will of a universe that is throwing the tower at you over and over again. You don't have to sit here and make sense of everything anymore. It's like, no, you did it. You passed. Here's a gold star. Get the fuck out there and start doing what you do. Don't wait for anybody else to tell you that it's time to do it. Because when we come into September, we have the Justice card. I really, really like the fact that she is here when we have talked so much about consequence and how now this is something that you truly understand. This is something that factors into your decision-making process twixt, you know, action and reaction, which of those is most appropriate at this time. She talks about it's like the engagement of a karmic situation, which feels for me to be very fucking good for you indeed. You know, the North Node's been in your sign for well over a year now. I think come the end of this year, it will be shifting out of the Aries Libra axis and into the Virgo Pisces axis. And that's going to take a little bit of the, it's going to take a little bit of the pressure off, if I'm honest. Because there's an insatiability about the North Node. When the North Node engages, it's like, oh, you cannot rest until you've gone in this direction as far and as hard as you possibly can. Nothing is enough when the North Node is engaged. It can be a little toxic sometimes, a little bit obsessive, a little bit over the top, a little bit hungry ghost, right? Come the turn of the year, that pressure will be released on you. But that means that you still have 4 months of the year left to make the most of the North Node being here. Interesting that some sort of karmic situation is being engaged here for you. Like I said, not a bad thing at all. I think it's a very good thing, and I feel like it's kind of spinning you up to the next level. But in the first instance, what it requires from you is a little bit like, alright, I'm going to show my age here, right? Back in the 80s when I was at school, we all wore school uniform, as we do in the UK. If we were doing anything kind of athletic at lunchtime or playtime or whatever, right? Whether you were wearing a summer dress or whether you were wearing a skirt and a fucking shirt or whatever, you'd tuck your skirt into your knickers and you'd be like, right, let's go. Whether you were doing handstands or whatever, right? There was always that kind of tucking up kind of thing. And then you could run really fast. Or you could play on the skipping rope. You know, big, long skipping ropes. And you get fucking 4 people in there jumping around and stuff. You move the things that are in the way, out of the way, and then you get stuck in. And if I was to give what I can feel here, some sort of physical action, it's that tucking in everything that is loose and wafty and hanging around, anchoring it down, and then just taking off. The Ace of Wands is about initiation, right? It's not an Aries card per se. The Aries cards are the 2, the 3, and the 4 of Wands. It's a card that initiates a cycle that involves Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, right? And they run through those cards, through the decans and whatnot, and come back to the beginning. We've got an end over here, and we've got a beginning over here. Just goes round and round and round. It's the starting pistol on something. And what's very, very clear here is that it's time to jump. The Knight of Wands, like I said right at the beginning, often represents opportunity. And it's an opportunity that is not going to be around forever. So whether you have to be the Knight of Wands and leap on this, or whether the opportunity is of the nature of the Knight of Wands, and so it's something that's kind of coming by quickly and you've got to be on your toes to be able to collect it, I'm not sure. But what is clear is that opportunity is the order of the day. And there are consequences to this decision, just as there are consequences to not making the decision. And it's like, you'd rather regret something that you did do than something that you didn't. I don't think that you will regret whatever it is, because this Five of Wands showing up in reverse, like all fives, it's a stabilization when it shows up in the reverse, right? We're stabilizing a sense of inner turmoil about the nature of consequence versus our need for movement and action and all of these kind of things. I mean, this has got a deep philosophical nugget that you've been kind of working, like a Rubik's Cube. It's a deep psychological and philosophical Rubik's Cube that you've been twisting and turning for a little while. You're like, oh, is it worth it? Is it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm ready. I'm not sure I'm ready to destabilize myself. I'm not sure I'm ready to do all of these things. And the universe is saying, oh, you are. Yes, you are. And it's time to think big. You might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb, as we would say in the UK, which is like, if you're going to do something, you might as well go fucking big or go home. Because whatever happens, there are going to be consequences for it. And the punishment for, you know, killing a lamb are just the same as killing a sheep. And if you get away with it, you got a whole ass sheep rather than a tiny little lamb. I think that's where that saying comes from, right? Whatever you've been wrestling with, I don't think you're missing any information. I think some of you are a little bit afraid to trust what it is that you think that you know right now. You're a little bit worried about coming out of the cage. Not because you think that, you know, towers are about to hit and everything, but it's like, have I really understood the lessons? Have I really grown by way of this experience? Or am I just fooling myself? You know, are these idle platitudes that I'm telling myself and I just kind of escaped by the skin of my teeth or whatever? And the universe says, Aries, I've missed you. You might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb. Punishment's the same. You can either stick your toe out in September, tentatively test the ground, or you can go off like a rocket. Either way, what you're not doing is staying where you are. There's some sort of cycle here that seems to be resetting for you, and you have arrived neatly at the beginning of something. And all that's required for you is to be who you are. Allow those more Martian bits of you, the speed, for sure, the maybe it's even a little bit of the aggression. Well, it's not so much aggression, right? Competitiveness. Let's say competitiveness, right? Let all of these come to the fore, particularly if there's some sort of situation whereby you can be a leader in something. Because the universe seems to be saying, like, I took you out of the game for a little bit just so that Saturn could, you know, beat you over the head with some stuff for a while. But you got it. That's cool. Come back. Now show us all what you've learned. When I did, I spent a day doing September readings. Well, it was literally yesterday. And I did a meditation before I started the reading, the first reading of the day, which was Libra, as I do every time I do any reading at all, whether it's a personal reading, whether it's a monthly reading, whatever. And the message that came through on that struck me as having a collective applicability, not just for Libra, but like right across the board. And so I mentioned this in all of the readings that I did that day. Now, Libra is your opposite sign in the zodiac. The South Node has been sitting in the sign of Libra for the whole time that the North Node has been sitting in your sign. And this South Node is the kind of spiritual balancing of the lessons, particular to Libra, that we've all been wrestling with. There's been a lot of pressure on Libra, as there has been on you. The message was simply this: August is the month that changed everything. I don't know why that is the case, but it's felt very clear to me that whatever's happening in September, however it feels, and for a lot of signs it feels kind of shitty, I'm not going to lie, nevertheless, it is part of the new story, it's part of the new cycle. And everybody seems to be spooling up for something really quite impressive. We're seeing Aries in a return to form. Capricorn, for example, experiencing a level of humility as they understand where they missed something really, really important, and what that's showing them is where their priorities have been, in order to allow them to shift them to something new. And Capricorn, just like Aries, is one of those signs where it receives a new motivation, it's like, right, I'm going to throw everything that I've got into that. It's a big all or nothing energy, right? Much like Aries in that respect. And so it is with all of the signs. For you, go big or go home. This Eight of Cups says you're not going home. Not to there. You've left that behind. It is now no longer part of your desire. You've outgrown it. So now, a return to form. Go big. And trust yourself. That's all you need to do. You need to trust yourself that whatever shows up for you in September is the start of something wildly exciting that is going to see you feel more like yourself than you have done in a very, very long time. It may not be immediate, but the signs will be there. The excitement, the sense of adventure, the little thrill of, ooh, I'm about to go to war, like Aries do with things. And it's okay for you to lean into that. In fact, it is necessary for you to lean into that. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go and do the extended, actually, is what I'm going to do. So, if you would like to join me there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Vimeo, you can do that on Circle. The links for both are in the description box. If neither of those appeal to you, that's absolutely fine. Just know that you're going to feel very different at the end of September versus the beginning. You're going to feel a lot more like yourself. You're going to start to feel a little bit more like you're actually in charge of your shit again. And I think it's going to feel thrilling. I think it's going to feel exhilarating. But you have to allow yourself to feel it, Act rather than react. But in the action, you can put everything that you have into it. This is awesome. Alright. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.